All right, back with another one. Goku and DC, episode 9, season 3. Batman versus Nappa. Or Batman takes on Nappa. Let's get to it. The moment Batman's smoke bomb detonated, a thick, impenetrable cloud of dark gray smoke erupted across the battlefield, swallowing Nappa whole. 1 second, the hulking Saiyan warrior was grinning, cracking his knuckles as he prepared to pummel the next hero that was foolish enough to step into his range, and the next, he was blind in the dark, his vision reduced to swirling shadows. Nappa snarled, his massive frame tensing as he whipped his head left and right. His beady black eyes straining to pierce through the unnatural smoke screen. "The hell is this?" he bellowed, swiping a meaty hand through the thick fog as if he could physically clear it away. His tail twitched behind him, lashing like an agitated whip. "Hiding like cowards already." The smoke obscured the Saiyan's sight, his massive frame swallowed up by the dense haze. Nappa's ears twitched. His Saiyan senses were sharp from years of combat, and that's when he heard a whisper of displaced air to his left. The moment Aquaman lunged from the smoke, his trident gleaming with lethal intent, Nappa's ears twitched. Just a fraction. Just enough. The whisper of displaced air, the faintest scruff of boots on cracked earth. His instincts honed across 1,000 battlefields screamed at him. His hand snapped up faster than Aquaman anticipated, and the trident's razor-sharp prongs bit deep into his palm. Blood splattered across Nappa's armor, crimson droplets hanging in the air for a split second before gravity claimed him. The pain was sharp, immediate, but Nappa didn't even flinch. Instead, his lips peeled back into a feral grin, his teeth glinting like a predator's. "Nice try, fish scales," Nappa growled, and before Aquaman could react, Nappa yanked him forward by the trident shaft, closing the distance between them in a blink. The Atlantean's eyes widened as Nappa's forehead rocketed towards his face. Crack! The impact was sickening. Bone met bone with a sound like splitting timber. Aquaman's head snapped back, blood erupting from his nose as the force of the headbutt lifted him right off his feet. He sailed backward, crashing through the dissipating smoke and skidding across the battlefield like a rag doll. And the League could only watch in horror as their strongest frontline fighter was dismantled within seconds. Nappa stared at the blood dripping from his palm, the deep gash left by Aquaman's trident glistening under the sunlight. For a moment he was just silent, unusual for the boisterous warrior that he was. Then slowly his lips curled into a grin, his jagged teeth bared in something between amusement and admiration. "Damn," he muttered, turning the trident over in his grip, examining the ornament craftsmanship, the way the metal shimmered like a liquid gold despite the blood that was now staining it. "Didn't think anything on this mud ball could cut me." He flicked his fingers, watching as the wound leaked to the floor. The League tensed. Batman's eyes narrowed behind his cowl, already recalculating their next move. Flash vibrated in place, ready to dart in at the first sign of an opening. Cyborg's arm cannon hummed as it charged, but he hesitated. Attacking now might provoke Nappa into something even more brutal for that time. Nappa didn't seem to notice, or care. He just swung the trident experimentally, the weapon cutting through the air with a sharp whoosh. "Not bad," he mused, his voice dripping with dark amusement. "Sharp, lightweight, hits like a damn asteroid." His grin widened. "I think I'll keep it." His gaze flicked back to the heroes, his grips tightening around the trident shaft. "After I wipe the rest of you maggots out, that is." The threat hung in the air, heavy and unchallenged. Aquaman groaned from where he lay in the dirt, struggling to push himself back up. His face was a mess of blood. Nappa didn't even glance back at him as he twirled the trident like he was practicing majorette. But Nappa's grin soon faltered for the briefest moment as he glanced down at his now empty hand. The trident, his new trident, was gone. His fingers twitched, curling around nothing but air. His brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his brutish features before his eyes snapped up, scanning the battlefield. And then he saw it. The Flash stood a dozen yards away, vibrating in place, the stolen trident clutched within his hands. The speedster's usual playful smirk was absent, replaced by a grim determination as he tossed the weapon back toward Aquaman, who caught it with a shaky grip. Nappa's nostrils flared. His blood boiled. "You little..." The ground beneath Nappa's feet shattered as he lunged forward, his massive frame moving faster than physics should allow. The Flash's eyes widened. He hadn't expected Nappa to react that fast. The Saiyan's fist blurred through the air, aimed squarely at the speedster's ribs. Whoosh! Flash moved, his body dissolving in a crimson streak as he sidestepped the blow by a hair's breadth. Nappa's punch tore through the space where he stood, the sheer force of the missed strike creating a shockwave that sent nearby rocks tumbling backward. Nappa snarled, pivoting on his heel. "Quit dancing and fight!" Flash didn't answer. Instead, he darted in again, this time aimed a rapid series of punches to Nappa's pressure points. His fists were a blur, striking with precision. Kidneys, solar plexus, the base of the skull. Each hit was designed to stagger, to disorient. But Nappa just laughed. "That all you got?" He swiped at Flash again, missing, but this time his tail lashed out like a whip and caught the speedster's feet. Thwack! Flash gasped as the wind was knocked out of him as he hit the ground, skidding backwards after being tripped by Nappa's tail. And Nappa's grin returned, wider, even crueler. Happy Feet is running himself into the ground already. The moment Robin's smoke pellets hit the ground, another thick cloud erupted, swallowing the battlefield in an impenetrable gray haze. The League scattered, their movements masked by the smokescreen, just as they had planned. But this time, Nappa didn't snarl in frustration. Instead, a slow, knowing grin spread across his face as his fingers tapped the side of his scouter, the device whirred to life, lenses adjusting as it locked onto the energy signatures of the heroes. Beep, beep, beep. Numbers flickered across the display, each one corresponding to a target. Batman, power level of 35, peak human, but barely registering. Robin was at 25, slightly weaker and even more insignificant. Flash sat at 100, enhanced but erratic, and it was always fluctuating. His power level was always fluctuating upward, likely due to his speed force. Cyborg's power level, however, was unreadable because of his cybernetics. And Aquaman was sitting at about 3,500 out of the water, which was actually impressive for an Earthling, as far as Nappa was concerned. Then Nappa's grin widened. "Huh, nice try, Bugs. Now I can see you through the fog." Cyborg's breath hitched as his thermal followed Nappa's movements through the smoke. "Wait, he can see us." Batman's mind raced. "Not see, track." Nappa chuckled, cracking his neck. "You really thought the same trick would work twice?" His scouter beeped again, locking onto his next target, which was Robin. Nappa's scouter locked onto Robin's energy signature, the beeping crescendoing into a sharp ping as the targeting systems confirmed the strike. The Saiyan warrior didn't hesitate. His fist rocketed forward, knuckles aimed like a battering ram straight for Robin's ribs. The air itself seemed to scream from the force of the punch, the shockwave rippling through the smoke before impact, and Robin's eyes widened. He had just enough time to register that there was an incoming blow. His training screaming at him to dodge, but Nappa was fast. Way too fast. And then, lightning. A streak of crimson blurred between them. The Flash's fingers closed around Robin's wrist a millisecond before Nappa's fist was able to connect. And the world lurched sideways as Speed Force energy yanked Robin out of the path of destruction, the displaced air from Nappa's punch exploding outward like an air grenade. Dust and debris erupted in their wake in all directions as Flash skidded to a halt 20 yards away, Robin gasping in his grip. Nappa's fist hung in empty space, his grin faltered, replaced by a snarl. Again? His scouter flicked, recalculating, but Flash was already moving, darting back into the fray, zigzagging unpredictably to throw off the tracking. Robin sucked in a sharp breath, adrenaline making his hands shake. "Close one," he muttered. Flash didn't smile, though. "He's learning our moves. We can't keep this up forever." The moment Nappa's fist tore through the space where Robin had just stood, Batman's mind accelerated into overdrive. His sharp eyes tracked every detail, the way Nappa's head tilted slightly before striking, the faint beep of his scouter adjusting, the way his gaze never truly looked at Robin but rather through him, as if locked onto something unseen. Batman's voice was a low growl over the comms. "Cyborg, scan his scouter, now." Cyborg's optics whirred, zooming in on the device clamped over Nappa's eye. His systems flared to life, analyzing the energy signatures, the radio frequencies, anything that could explain how Nappa was able to track them through the smoke. "Got it," Cyborg muttered. That thing's not just a HUD. It's a biometric tracker. It's reading our energy signatures, heart rates, even muscle tension. That's how it's predicting our moves. It even seems to be more advanced than Raditz's scouters." Batman's jaw tightened. "Then we blind it." Cyborg's arm cannon reconfigured with a mechanical click. shifting from plasma rounds to an electromagnetic pulse emitter. One problem: if I fry a scouter, he'll know it was us, and he really won't like that. Batman doesn't hesitate. Do it. The moment Cyborg's targeting system locked onto Nappa's scouter, his arm cannon reconfigured with a sharp mechanical click, shifting from plasma rounds to a focused electromagnetic pulse emitter. The air around his cannon hummed with charged energy, the faint blue glow intensifying as he powered up the shot. Batman's voice crackled over the comms, low and urgent. Now! Cyborg didn't hesitate. Boom! A concentrated blast of EMP energy lanced through the battlefield, invisible to the naked eye but devastating to electronics. The pulse struck Nappa's scouter dead center, the device flickering wildly before emitting a sharp, distorted screech. Sparks erupted from its lens, the eternal circuitry frying in an instant. Nappa's hand flew to his scouter, his grin vanishing as the display fizzled into static. The hell? He ripped the device from his face, crushing it in his fist with a snarl, the battlefield still thick with smoke, and he was now truly blind to them. Cyborg smirked despite the danger. Scouter's down. He's flying blind now. Batman's eyes narrowed behind his cowl. Good. Now we move. Batman's eyes narrowed behind his cowl. Good. Now we move. Why'd I say that twice? But Nappa wasn't done. His head snapped toward Cyborg, his nostrils flaring as he zeroed in on the sound of his voice. You little roach, he growled, his muscles coiling. The ground beneath him shattered as he launched himself forward, directly at Cyborg. The moment Nappa lunged, his massive frame tearing through the smoke like a wrecking ball, the Flash was already moving. Whoosh! A streak of crimson lightning blurred across the battlefield again as the speedster yanked Cyborg backwards, just as Nappa's fist obliterated the place where he stood. Shaking the ground, the shockwave of the missed punch sent debris flying. The sheer force rattled the mountain beneath him. Nappa snarled, whirling around only to find empty air. Damn speedster! He roared, his tail lashing in frustration. Batman didn't waste the opening. With a sharp flips of his rick, another smoke pellet detonated at Nappa's feet, the thick gray haze swallowing the sand warrior once more. Robin mirrored the move, tossing a second pellet for good measure. The battlefield now a swirling impenetrable fog around the entire landscape. Over the comms, Batman's voice was ice cold. Now, hit him with everything. Then Aquaman thrusted his trident, but Nappa sidestepped the trident's deadly prongs once again, and Aquaman didn't hesitate this time. He twisted his grip mid-swing, turning the weapon in his hands with practiced precision. The butt end of the trident, a solid weighted shaft of Atlantean steel, whistled through the air as he brought it crashing upward in a brutal arc. Nappa's eyes widened a fraction, his smirk faltering as he realized too late that the strike wasn't aimed to pierce, but to bludgeon. Crack! The impact was sickening. The trident's heavy pommel smashed into Nappa's jaw, with enough force to snap a normal man's neck. The Saiyan's head snapped sideways, his teeth clackling together as a spray of crimson erupted from his lips. Blood, thick and dark, splattered across the battlefield, flecking Aquaman's armor as Nappa staggered back a step, his boots grinding against the fractured earth. For the first time since the battle began, Nappa looked surprised. His tongue probed the inside of his mouth, tasting copper. When he pulled his fingers away, they came back slick and with red. His gums had split from the force of the blow, his lower lip swelling almost instantly. Then a beat of silence, and then Nappa laughed, a wet guttural sound that sent chills down the spines of everyone that was watching. Not bad, Fishman. He spat, blood dribbling down his chin. His grin returned wider now, more feral. Guess I'll have to stop playing nice. And Aquaman barely had time to brace before Nappa's fist was headed toward his face. The moment Nappa staggered back, though, from Aquaman's strike, the Flash had already been in motion. Not just moving, but accelerating beyond his usual limits. His boots left the ground in a crackle of scarlet lightning as he shot eastward, his body a blur streaking across the continent. The wind screamed past him, cities and forests melting into streaks of color as he pushed his speed to the brink. One lap. He tore through the atmosphere, kinetic energy building with every step. The friction of his passage superheated the air, leaving a trail of ionized particles in his wake. His muscles burned, his cells screamed, but he didn't stop. 2 laps. By the third pass, the energy around him was a visible storm, a vortex of red lightning coiling around his fist like a living thing. The speed force itself seemed to howl in anticipation. Then, impact. Flash reappeared on the battlefield in a thunderclap, his fist driving upward with an accumulated force of a continental sprint. The punch connected with Nappa's chin in a detonation of light and sound, the shockwave ripping the smoke apart in a perfect ring. Nappa's head snapped back, his feet actually leaving the ground for the first time in the fight, just an inch or maybe two, before he crashed back down, skidding through the dirt with a guttural snarl. His lips split wider, and a tooth was loosened. Flash panted, his entire arm smoking, and his goggles were cracked from the sheer backlash of the powerful blow. And the moment Nappa's boot skidded backward from Flash's lightning uppercut, Cyborg was already in position, perched atop a jagged boulder, his arm cannon fully charged and humming with lethal energy. His optics locked onto Nappa's staggering form, crosshairs flashing red as his targeting system calculated the perfect angle of impact. The air around his cannon crackled with blue-white plasma, the sheer heat of it distorting the battlefield like a mirage. And Cyborg didn't hesitate. "Eat this!" he roared, and with a deafening boom, his cannon unleashed a concentrated blast of raw, unbridled energy. The beam tore through the air like a comet, a searing column of destruction that struck Nappa dead center in the chest, just as the Saiyan warrior was regaining his footing. The impact was catastrophic. Nappa's armor blackened instantly, the force of the blast cratering the earth beneath him in a spiderweb of fissures. Dust and debris erupted in the shockwave. The sheer concussive force flattened the nearby rocks and sent tremors rippling through the battlefield. For a split second, Nappa's massive frame was suspended in the energy stream, his muscles straining against the torrent of power. His teeth gritted, his eyes were wide with something between fury and disbelief. Then, with a final surge from Cyborg's cannon, the ground beneath him gave way. Boom! The earth split open, the rotten fruit swallowing Nappa whole as the beam drilled him deeper into the planet's crust. The resulting explosion of the dirt and rocks sent a mushroom cloud of dust billowing into the air, obscuring the massive pit where Nappa had once stood. The battlefield fell eerily silent, save for the faint sizzle of molten earth and the heavy panting of the League. Cyborg's arm cannon smoked, its vent hissing as it cooled. His optics flickered, scanning the crater for any sign of movement. The Flash clutched his hand, hissing through his teeth as he flexed his fingers. The knuckles were swollen, already bruising a deep purple from the force of his punch. Despite the pain, a grin tugged at his lips. Damn! That guy's jaw was harder than steel. Cyborg's optics flickered as he scanned the smoldering crater where Nappa had vanished. His scouter whirred, analyzing heat signatures, energy readings, anything that might indicate whether the Saiyan was still conscious. The dust hadn't even settled yet, but the silence was unnerving. Batman crouched beside Aquaman, pressing a hand to the Atlantean's ribs. "You're bleeding, and it's probably internal as well." Aquaman spat a mouthful of blood onto the dirt, gripping his trident like a lifeline. "He hits like a tidal wave." He's breathing ragged, but his eyes burned with defiance. "Did we get him?" Cyborg's voice was grim. "Power level still active. It's dropped a bit, but..." His words were interrupted by the ground shaking. Cyborg's optics flickered wildly as his sensor screamed a warning. His head snapped to the right, scanning the terrain. Something was moving beneath the earth, a surge of energy tumbling through the bedrock like a molten spear. His voice crackled over the comms, urgent and clipped. "Energy source, right side, underground, moving fast." Aquaman didn't hesitate, gripping his trident. He lunged toward the disturbance, his boots kicking up dust as he planted himself between the threat and his allies, planning to impale whoever came out of that ground. The ground trembled underfoot, fissure spiderwebbing outward as the unseen force barreled closer, his muscle tense, his instinct screaming. Then, the earth erupted, not with Nappa's fists, but with fire. A searing yellow energy blast tore through the surface like a geyser, the concussive force detonating the ground beneath Aquaman's feet. The explosion lifted him off the ground, his body silhouetted against the blinding light for a split second before the shockwave hurled him backward like a catapult. Rock and debris rained down as the blast radius expanded, swallowing Aquaman whole before collapsing into a heap of shattered stone. Silence. Cyborg's optics widened. "No! Damn, it's a trap!" The dust twirled, leaving the standing members in confusion. Cyborg's optics flared red as his sensor screamed, another power spike, this one erupting from beneath the battlefield. His voice was raw as he shouted over his comm. "Watch out! He's coming up!" Too late. The earth beneath Batman and Robin exploded in a shower of dirt and rock as Nappa burst forth like a demon from the depths of hell itself. His massive fists already mid-swing. His eyes burned with sadistic glee. His lips peeled back in a snarl. Gotcha! Batman's instincts kicked in and he twisted, his cape flaring as he reached for Robin, but even his reflexes weren't fast enough. Nappa's fist closed the distance, the air itself screaming from the force of the blows. Whoosh! A streak of crimson lightning blurred between them. The Flash's hands clamped around Batman and Robin's collar, yanking them backward, just as Nappa's knuckles grazed their fabric. The moment the Flash blurred into motion, Nappa's reflexes honed across countless battlefields, snapped into action. His massive hands shot out, not toward the speedster, but toward the two figures he was trying to save. His fingers closed like a vice around Batman and Robin's utility belts. The reinforced fabric straining for a split second before crunch. The sound of buckling metal and shattering gadgets echoed across the battlefield as Nappa's grip tightened, pulverizing every tool, every explosive, every last trick up their sleeves into useless scrap. Smoke pellets, batarangs, sonic emitters, all reduced to twisted wreckage in his palm. The belts themselves tore like paper, the remnants slipping from Nappa's fingers as he let out a dark, rumbling chuckle. Batman's jaw clenched, his mind racing without their gear. Without their gear, the tactical advantage was gone. Robin's breath hitched, his hand instinctively reaching for a batarang that was no longer there. Nappa cracked his neck, rolling his shoulders as he loomed over them, his grin widening into something truly monstrous. Blood still dripped from his split lip. His armor was scorched from Cyborg's blast, but his eyes burned with undiminished bloodlust. Now, he rumbled, cracking his knuckles. All of you will be the next ones to go underground. His tail lashed behind him, stirring the dust at his feet. But this time, his aura flared, a sickly yellow glow erupting around him as he planted his stance. This time you'll be going underground permanently. All right, man. So that's the episode, man. Hopefully you guys liked it. Be sure you like, share, subscribe, all that. Until the next one. Go on.